Welcome back, guys. It's craft time. So in today's video, I'm going to be walking you through this really fun picture that I found. I'm going to be giving you a list of the supplies you'll need for this particular picture and then walking you through how I would do this step by step. It's been a while since we've painted, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I understand that most people do not have a plethora of paints and brushes and things like I do at home, so I'm trying to keep this list very minimal. Before I get into it, I'm going to say that my sweet daughter is playing behind me, so any weird noises and loud whatever you hear, that's just her living her best life. So, alright, to start, you're going to obviously need something to paint on. Now, I typically just paint with a textured cardstock because I can get a booklet of it for like $5, and then it gives me a lot of things to paint on because I do paint often for my work. I am using just a piece of cardboard that I have this taped down onto. You can use a canvas or anything else that you have. If you're using any type of paper, though, I would suggest using some masking tape and taping it down. And this is your option, but I like to try to make sure it's covered on the edges evenly all the way around. That way when you pull the tape off, it gives you like a nice border and it's not all wonky with weird angles and like a messed up frame. If you are painting on a surface that you do not want paint on, put a tablecloth or something down just to make sure. I have this cardboard, so it's not going to get off of this, so I'm not worried about it. I have on an apron. You should wear some old clothes or an apron or something covering you just in case, because acrylic paint will not come out of clothing. Sometimes you can get lucky and catch it like right off the bat, but other than that, it is with you for life. I am going to just use this paper plastic plate for my paints to pour them on if I need anything like a type of palette. Some sort of water. I'm going to be using just these 4 brushes. So I have this big mop brush. This is actually a big makeup brush because you can get this a lot cheaper than you can an actual paintbrush of this size. It's just made by e.l.f. and it's amazing. I'm going to be using a fan brush, this really like coarse one with lots of awesome texture, or this nice rounded brush for the trees. And then I also have just this like fluffier round brush to use for like coloring in the moon and other areas. So if you don't have a fan brush, just some type of like pointed brush works. But I would say if you like to paint, get one of these, just one, and it will change your life. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to keep it down to just these 4 things. I like to have paper towels on hand because I am messy. Now for this particular painting, it's just a beautiful like night scene. So honestly, the only colors that you really need are white and black. And then for the moon, they did this beautiful rainbow. And so you just need all of your colors of the rainbow. However, if you didn't want to buy all of these colors, you can just do like, I think just like the purple and blue moons together, or just whatever colors you have, it's going to look gorgeous. So I do have all the colors of the rainbow, so I'm planning on using them, but we'll see where the night takes us. Alright, so I have those, and I do have just these small bottles. You can get them for 50 cents at Walmart. So it's just the apple barrel, and I get the matte, not the glossed. I think that's everything in our material list, so let's just go ahead and start on our background. Painting can seem a little intimidating. I know it was to me for a long time, until you really think about how you break it down. You want to work from the background into the foreground. So you want to do everything that you see in the distance first. So our very first thing will be to color this entire background, the colors that we need to work with. So I have a pavement, but if you don't have a dark gray, just make one your own with the black and the white. So I'm going to just put a little bit of paint down up here. This is my pavement. I'm going to do a black horizon down here because I want my sky to be that like a little bit lighter and then come down and get a little bit lighter, and then I want it to go dark down here where our water and our land will be. So I'm just going to kind of put it down. I know I do this a lot different than most people, but this messy situation works for me. So I might need just a little bit more of this. All right. Now I'm going to take my biggest brush, and if you don't have one this big, just use the biggest brush you have. It's just going to cover more surface area and save you some time. I like to dip it in water first and then wring it completely out. And I know that seems silly, but all this is doing is going ahead and getting all the bristles wet. That way they don't try to soak up all of your paint and it won't take as much paint to cover it. So I'm just going to dab it so it's still wet, but there's no dripping water. If you do that, then it's just going to wet your paper and your paint, and it's just going to become more transparent. I apologize. All right. So then you're going to load your brush full of paint. And all you're going to do is start on the right side, and you're going to pull it to the left. And when you get over here, don't pick it up. Just lay it back over and go back again. And just do that all the way down. If you miss any spots, just go ahead and hit them. And I'm just going straight into my white. And as you can see, it's kind of giving me that like lighter gray as I go down, because that's where my moon's going to sit. And I'm just going straight over the black, and it's giving me that perfect horizon line. So just right and left, over and over, all the way to the bottom. And I don't have quite enough paint on the bottom, so I'm just going to add just a wee bit more right here. And I'm just going to go back again. Now, if you see, once you come to the bottom and you get it all taken care of, give me a second. We are going to check to see, okay, I don't see any paper shining through anywhere. So if you did see a part up here that wasn't covered exactly how you like, do not use this brush again. This brush now is fully loaded with this dark color, and if you go touch it up here, it will ruin it. So just get your secondary brush that you have, wet it, and then just kind of fix that area. Grab more paint if you need to, fix it, and then make sure that you go back all the way across to make it blend in with your background. Now I do see some areas where I have some paint boogers. So if you know what I'm talking about, it's just where the acrylic paint that kind of like globs up. So I'm going to get those off of my picture. Daughter's having fun back there. And then I'm going to wet my brush, and I'm just going to glide over those areas to make sure my paper's not showing through. Okay. Now, I tend to paint wet on wet, so one second. That's a big one. So what that means is I don't let my background completely dry before I move on to the next step. This doesn't always work, but for this particular next steps that we're doing, it's going to be just fine. I will let you know if you need to pause and let the background dry a little bit. Now, if you did put too much paint down, and there's a lot of paint on your surface and you do need to let it dry, that's not a big deal. Just pause it and let it dry. You can also use a blow dryer on like a medium heat and kind of go over it, and that will help it dry quicker if you are a little impatient. I'm a bit impatient, but remember, this is to relax you, just kind of calm you down, slow you down, take you away from whatever you have going on in life right now. Make sure your legs aren't crossed, your feet are just relaxed and chilling, and just let everything go. We're just here to take your mind off of things for a while. Excuse me. All right, so if you've taken this, just set it to the side. Don't put it in your water or anything yet. If you've done that, that's okay. Just dry it out. because we're going to use it here in a second. Or I guess if you have, we can use the secondary brush too. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of our white paint and we're just going to put a dab of it onto our palette. Just a small amount. You don't need a lot. And we're going to take, like I have like this coarse brush. Like if you have a brush with stiffer bristles, that's all you're looking for here is a brush with stiffer bristles. Or if you have like a you know, not great toothbrush lying around somewhere or something, obviously not used would be better. Then grab that, but I'm going to show you how to do stars without having to do little dots. This will make it more random and more realistic. So you're going to take whatever stiffer bristled brush you have. You're going to dip it in the water. You're going to take it without wringing, just kind of shake it a couple times, but without wringing it out, and you're going to dip it on the side of that white paint. So what we're doing is just making a really watered down white. Okay? We're going to take that, and I like to kind of tap it on the side of my water just to get the really big drops out. But then you're just going to take it, you're going to take your thumb. You can either take it onto another brush like this and tap it. Okay? Or you can take your thumb and you can kind of splat it like this. And you can do as many or as little stars as you would like. Kind of change the direction too to make it a little more random. This is also how you do snow. So we're doing stars, so they're going in the background first. But if you were doing snow, that would be your very last step. So we're going to wipe ourselves clean. It gets a little messy, beware. And then either use your brush that's already loaded with the black paint or your secondary brush. It's not a big deal. All you're going to do is go wipe back over and get rid of any of them that landed on the bottom half because your stars are only in your sky. There we go. And then we're done with this. So I'm just going to set mine over here to the side. I apologize. I'm like getting over an illness that I have and I have just a slight cough left lingering. So, all right. The next step that we're going to do is our big, beautiful moon. So, I'm going to use the secondary brush that we had. Just going to kind of clean it out a little bit. And then I'm going to take the white because I want to go ahead and give myself like a base. Put a little bit more white on here. And then we want a big moon. I don't want you to be afraid to like really go after it. Looking back, I probably should have brought my sky down just a little less than half, but we're going to make this work and it's just fine. I want a big old moon. So just do the best you can to make it pretty symmetrical. And just kind of give yourself a good base to go off of. When I do my moons, I like to paint in a circle to give it that like rotational look because it is a sphere. And just kind of paint that in. You don't want to overuse paint here because remember we're going to go back over it with all those beautiful colors or whatever colors you chose. Sorry, my daughter's enjoying herself with that toy back there. Mom life, right? I want mine to just be like really big. So I'm going to make mine come over the top. Baby girl, what's up? All right, so as you can see, I've kind of gone over my land a little bit, but I'm just gonna put it back. I'm gonna use this brush. It's real wet now, so we're gonna wring it out. I'm just gonna take it and I'm going to wipe my horizon again to put the moon back in the background to make it just look like it's like peeking over. All right. Next comes the fun part. All right, we are going to, I'm just gonna get that out of the way. Take our colors and just put a little bit of each color that you plan to use on your palette. This shouldn't take a ton, so if you don't want to waste a lot of paint, just put a little down and then just grab more out as you need it. I'm going to kind of layer it how I want it to go in order to try to help me visualize it a little bit. Blue. Green. And I hope to, like I said, to just break this down and make this as simple and as easy as possible, because I feel like there are a lot of people who are out there like me who swore they didn't know how to paint and they couldn't do it and wanted to, but just didn't know how. And so I was taught how to just break it down and make it. And I mean, my stuff doesn't look super realistic or anything, but it works for me and I really like it, and it makes me happy and accomplished when something turns out well. So my goal is to just help you guys get some confidence and show you that even if a picture might look a little tough, which some look harder than others, that if you just break it down step by step, usually you can make it happen. So I think I'm going to start on my right side because I am doing the rainbow colors, and I want to start over because the purple and blues are those darker colors and I just don't want them to take over everything. So I'm just going to kind of play around here and get some of this pink down. It might be a little too wet. We might have to, let's just see. Again, I'm just going to use that like circular kind of motion here, but I'm only going to paint the areas that I want. So just keep that same like curve of the moon and just do your colors and layer them kind of how you want them to fit. And when you get to them where they meet together, just kind of brush that line where they meet. Really, you're just using the tip of your brush. Just the tip. And just go in with a little bit of paint. You don't have to do a ton right away. You can always add more. It's harder to fix it if you've kind of gone overboard. So just take your time, relax, and just slowly start adding those colors in. I'm going to move on to my next one. And you can see I'm just kind of starting, you know, giving myself a little bit of space when I put it down, because the most paint that you put down, that's going to make it darker. And then I'm just slowly working it back to where those colors meet. Do it again down here. And I don't want you to stress out if your picture doesn't look just like mine. My picture's not going to look just like our inspo picture. That's what makes it yours, you know? Put your little flair on it, your little signature. All right, my yellow is going to be my middle, so I'm going to kind of like swirl it into like a big oval here. So I try to tell the people I paint with is that if their picture looks just like mine, then it's mine, right? They want it to have their flair and their signature on it. Just like if we were to both write the same word, it's not going to look identical because we have different brush strokes, and that's what makes each of us individuals. So just embrace that and give yourself a break. Now this side, you can see I'm starting to go the opposite direction because, you know, this side's the other, curved the other way, so I'm like missing my words. And this is just going to be our base, and then we'll go from there. Just kind of get those colors down where you want them to be so you know where to begin and end. So you can see that since we're painting with the background kind of wet, like that white we put down, it's not super wet, but it's wet enough to where it's kind of blending everything. That's why I paint wet on wet. I know I do it different than a lot of people, but like I said, this is what works for me. Everybody has their thing, so this is mine. So I just thought I'd share with you. Blend those lines out. That's pretty. All right, now I'm going to kind of go back in and try to break it up a little bit just so it's not such defined lines. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see. That's what mine looks like right now. You can see I have all my colors there, but I just want them to be a little more blended. So I'm just going to go back over those lines and kind of give it a little texture and just bounce my brush around all over here because, you know, the moon, when you look at it, has all those craters and stuff, and it's not flat and it's not linear. So I'm just gonna, I just wiped my brush because it's getting a little bit muddied. So I'm just gonna go in and like, I think I might take a little bit of that blue and make a couple pops of darker areas. Don't want to blend it all the way back in, so I'm gonna leave some of those dark areas there. And I'm just kind of bouncing my brush around. Do the same with my green. I'm just bouncing around, and you can make it as bright and vibrant or as kind of low key as you want. I'm gonna start kind of overlapping just a little. I think I want to come back and do a little bit more purple down here. Put some of this in. Like I said, now it's just time to play. Kind of see what you like or what's working for you. Just kind of bringing those colors, overlapping each other a little more. Like I said, the goal is to kind of break up those super defined lines. So I'm going to bring some yellow through here too. I'm going to brighten up my middle a lot here. I'm just barely tapping. I'm not pushing super hard to where it's like breaking up my, like pulling the paint underneath up. Just kind of tapping it around, letting it do its thing. Now I want this section to have some orange, so I'm going to kind of bring it in the middle and come back out. Just bounce, 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 bounce. Just take your time. Relax, take a few deep breaths. I used to think that was silly. And somebody told me, just take a deep breath. Shut up, that's not going to help. But I have, over the years, really come to just let go with a few deep breaths. Like I said, I always found it silly, but now if I'm feeling overwhelmed or whatever, I'll just stop what I'm doing and I'll just breathe in really deep and count in my head and then just kind of let it all go. And it helps me. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but maybe give it a try. No. Just tap it along. You can see it's kind of giving it that like cratery vibe. Here, let me look at it. I'm gonna have to go back over my blue and my purple just because as I've kind of found the look that I'm going for. Sometimes that's what it takes, is I do this section and not quite sure where I'm going with it, move forward, and then you kind of find what works for you. And then you can always just go back and touch it up. So, gonna keep working here with my red. And if your brush isn't like really giving you a texture that you like, you could always just get like a paper towel and crumble it. And you can kind of dab it like that. And that works too. So I don't know if you can see that. I'll do this area down here. If you don't have paper towels, a napkin, a washcloth that an old washcloth that you don't really care to get dirty or anything. All right, I'm gonna do my pink. And if you're just watching this to kind of get an idea, and you're not actually actively painting with this right now, if you feel like that first step that I did was kind of like not necessary, then don't do it. Just move on to this part and just kind of put the colors where you want. I just like to have a guideline because sometimes I don't quite know exactly where I'm going with something or how I want it to look. So since I knew that I wanted my colors to kind of stay in that rainbow fashion, that just kind of gives me an idea of what I'm working with and what to look for and where the colors should go. I'm not really loving having this much pink, so I'm going to come back with my red and do this part. Here we go. Kind of blend that out a little. I'm not against pink. It was never my favorite color. All right, I'm gonna get some more orange going because I think now I have a little bit too much red. So I'm gonna kind of bring it in down here. Here we go. And then I'm gonna come rework this side a little bit. So I wasn't brave enough to really get in there at first. So we're gonna kind of bring it back to life over here. You still want your edges to kind of be nice and sharp. but we can always go back over those. Kind of smooth them out with your brush. Because when you see the moon, it is so far away, it does give you those crisp lines, so. I don't know if you can hear my daughter's show in the background, but she has this one particular show that she's obsessed with. It's one of those, she watches it on repeat, so even if I didn't have the sound, I could give you every line. Yay! Alright, let's do a little bit here. Bring a little bit in here. There we go. I'm liking this. It's pretty. This green. Pop of green here. Blend that in a little. Alright. So I'm comfortable with where mine is at. If you are not and you're still kind of fiddling with it, pause the video and finish up. Or if you're not quite liking the way it looks, you're not quite liking the way Sophia. Okay, so as I was saying, if you aren't quite liking the way it looks just yet, sometimes you just need to step away from it. So just pause the video, go get yourself a glass of water or a cup of other liquid choices, whatever you want. And then come back to it and look at it again. Or like hold it away from your face, because sometimes you're just so close to it and you've been staring at it for so long that you can't quite see your end result. And I can't tell you how many times I've hated a picture and just taken a break and went away and came back and have found a newfound love for it. So just do that. Don't fiddle too much because you don't want to muddy your colors or ruin or make it worse. If you're there and you just really don't like it, then step away. If you come back and you still don't like it, let it dry completely. Re-look at it. Sometimes it dries better than you think it will. But then you can add more paint on top and freshen it up. But if you keep doing it while it's wet, it's just going to muddy your colors and you're going to have to start over. So, yeah, just let it dry all the way. Reevaluate. I'm just dipping my brush in a little bit of water, getting the excess of it off on my paper towel, and kind of rolling my brush to like more of a point, because I want that moisture on there. So I'm not wringing it out, I'm just literally rolling it like this. And I'm using it and that water and that moisture to just kind of clean my edges. I'm just wiping it just to give it that more completed look. And that's like more defined edges. So I think I'm happy with it. Sometimes with my moons too, actually most of the time with my moons, I do like a halo around it. So if you can't quite get that clean edge, just take that same brush that you've gotten wet and you have some of the colors and just kind of go along the edge of it. And then once it dries, it'll just look like kind of like a halo of light, like the glow of the moon coming off of it. All right. I'm going to bring this up for you so you can kind of see where I'm at and where I landed with it. So I just used my brush tip to give me those textures. Or like I said, if you don't have a brush that you think is doing good, roll up a paper towel or a napkin and just kind of dab it. You don't want to push hard. You just want to kind of like dab on it a little bit. When you're ready, we will start building up our landscape and our water. We're going to go back to the black. And we're just going to put a little bit on our palette. Again, if you're not wanting to waste paint, just add a little bit and then you can Pour more out when you need it. Get a good amount on your brush. And then we're gonna mound. So it's gonna look like there's hills coming down. You can make them as big or as small as you want, or if you like want it to be a mountain, you can kind of come up really high. I'm just gonna come down to where my moon meets the ground. So mine's kind of wide. Just make sure you leave probably like 4 inches here in the middle. And because we're going to be making this some water. So I'm gonna kind of come right here where it kind of naturally meets, and I'm just gonna go right above my horizon line because I don't want crazy big hills. I just kind of want it to be a noticeable difference. And I'm just gonna color that in. I didn't make mine straight, and I didn't just go like this because yes, once you see something in the horizon, you know, the horizon's a nice flat line and other things, but most of the time you don't just see a hill and it just goes like that. So just kind of give it some movement and some texture. I'm just gonna color that in, and then I'm going to give myself kind of a line that kind of comes out down diagonal and gets wider towards the bottom. And I'm not drawing a straight line. I'm just gonna kind of like wiggle your hand as you go down. And then we're just gonna kind of fade this paint back into this side. So right now we're just shaping it, and then we'll come back and add detail in. So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So basically our water is going to come to more of a point when we meet our horizon line. So I'm going to come to this side, I'm going to make my hill however big or small, and then I'm going to make it come back out more towards my corner on this side. So just do that. I'm going to make mine kind of a little bit taller on this side. And then I'm going to come down this way. I'm just going to kind of blend that out. All right. So what we have from our inspiration picture is just some like snowy hills. So what I'm going to do is to keep this line nice and clean. Now, if you decide to make your moon big like mine to where it kind of meets the horizon line, you can do this. If you made it a little bit bigger up and your horizon line's not nice and crisp and you're not quite feeling it, just take this and then go straight across and connect your 2 hills. My paper's a little bit waved right there, so there's that, but I'm just going to kind of connect those there. And then we are going to come in here and do our snowy hills. Now for that, you're just going to keep your black or your dark gray or whatever you chose and just do a dab of white too. And I'm just going to have you put your brush in the black and then put your brush in the white and then back in the black. And then you're just going to kind of color this side in. But you're not going to do it in straight lines. You're just going to kind of do the same thing as you did here. You're going to kind of just like wiggle your brush. And then when you get those harsh like white lines, leave them. Because you don't want it to just mush out to one color. The 2 tones in it is what's going to give it definition. So when you see me having these, I'm just going to leave that because that's going to look like a mound of snow when it dries. If you think it's just a little too bright, you can touch it, but for the most part, you want to leave that stuff. That's what gives it all that fun definition. So I'm just going to come back and I'm just going back and forth. Bring it back up so you guys can really see what I'm doing. Sorry if my light's too bright. I'm coming over here. I'm going up, down, kind of wiggle around. And then I'm just kind of doing the same thing. And no real like pattern. So that you get all of those textures and those lines. And it makes it look like it's a nice little hilly, moundy, snowy situation. Does it have to be as dramatic as mine? Maybe this is a little bit too much. I'll kind of flatten it out just a little. But you just want it to look like it has some movement. If this makes you uncomfortable and you're like, my squiggles are just not working, that's okay. Just kind of go, just real gentle and soft back and forth, and it'll be all right. You'll work up to your comfort. So mine is kind of dry, my little edge here, because I used obviously the same colors. So I'm just going to kind of redefine that line to give me an idea so I don't go too far over. But that's one side. I feel like I need a little bit more white in some of these areas, so I'm just going to put my tip of my brush in there, and I'm just going to add a little bit of some white movement. And then because it will be kind of like a moon reflection too, I'm going to add a little bit more white at the top here to show that light reflection. And I'm thinking about loving all my waves, so I'm just going to take my brush and kind of do like a mound type swerve, swoop. All right, I know my light's bright, so I'm going to hold this up again and see if you can kind of see. I just didn't do straight across, and if you don't really like the swiggle look, just kind of like a slight arch all the way down. And then I'm going to do my other side. And your two sides don't have to look exactly the same. You know, it could be a little bit different of a landscape over here. So don't stress out about that stuff. I'm just going to keep working at it. And then we will move on to the trees. Or the water. I don't know. We'll see what I decide. Just going back and forth. Saw this picture and it just loved how simple it was on the color scheme, that it was just like these basic colors with that just bright pop of color shining from the moon. It just grabbed my eye. I was like, I have to give that a try. Okay. So I am done with mine. Again, if you are not ready to move on to the next step, just pause the video, finish up what you're doing, and then come back to it. Now, we're gonna go ahead and do our reflections down here. So you're going to be using whatever colors you used for your moon. So the whole point of the reflection is that basically you're going to mirror that down to here. Okay, so you're just going to take it and you're going to flip it down. So that means over here I want my purple and blues, and over here I want my pink and my reds, and then so on. And they're going to kind of meet in the middle. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to pause the video and get fresh water. So give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. All right. So I'm going to be taking, again, the same brush we used to color in our moon, the softer round brush, or whatever softer bristle brush you have. And I'm going to be just layering some of my colors in here. I'm doing it horizontally. with just kind of however it lands. Okay. Just wipe my brush off and I'm going to go into the next color. Do my orange. My red. My pink. All right. Started off too close together at first, but that's okay. Just gonna beef these up a little. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my brush, I'm gonna put it in the paint. I'm going to roll off the excess like I did before. And I'm just gonna wipe that through my colors, just a little bit at a time. So I'm gonna do my blues and my purples first. I'm just wiping one direction, not to be mistaken with one direction. So I'm just kind of blending those out a little bit, wiping my brush, getting more, rolling away the extra. And I'm gonna go into my greens and my yellows. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. We'll see. Not loving this. We might go a different route. I don't think I love this, guys. Hold on. All right, I was gonna. Okay, I was going to try to avoid having you guys put any paint down on here, but I think it's gonna work out better. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use the back of my brush, get a couple of the colors, and just put a couple dots of paint down the picture. So I'm just going to do purple and blue first. Purple, blue, and I'm going to kind of offset them just a little bit. Okay, they're there. Clean the back of your brush off so you don't get paint on yourself. Again, dip your brush in the water and then kind of roll it, but get a little bit more of the water off this time. And then starting from the outside and working in, just brush over, don't brush it away, just kind of like flick just the tip of your brush over those globs of paint and pull them towards the center. Okay, so I did that. I'm gonna wipe the excess off my brush and I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna do it again. And you should see it kind of work together, but where you can definitely tell there's two colors in there. And then we're going to go back and we're going to add our next color. For me, that's green. And that's yellow. Here we go. Wipe the back of your brush off. Get the water. Roll it out. And then do the same thing, start and just kind of flick it to where it kind of smears together. That one's good. Cleaning my brush. And do the same. Next is orange and red. I think I'm just going to do all three of these together so that way the pink has something to blend into as well. Orange, red, just dot, dot, dot. This is a trust the process type situation over here. All right, we'll do some pink. All right, I'm gonna do a couple of dots in here because I'm a little off balance my colors. Let's do a little bit of red. It's drying out on me. There we go. All right, wipe the back of your brush off. Don't forget. Dab, roll. And then this time I'm gonna try to go from this side in, but it's harder for me to get my hand to work like that. So let's just see what happens. So just, you're barely touching it. Like when you sweep a floor, you don't like push the broom down into the floor, right? You just use the tip of it to make it work the best. That's what we're doing here. That's essentially what we're doing. All right, I'm gonna wipe away the excess. Actually, I'm gonna do this part again. And now I'm going to take my brush, dip it in the water, and I'm going to get most of it out, and I'm going to brush the entire thing left to right and just drag those colors together. You don't want to muddy them. You don't want to lose the definition of where the colors meet, but we're just kind of making them flow all together and not making them all these separate like entities. I need orange. Y'all see that? I'm just getting a tiny bit and just using the tip of my brush, brushing it in. Now you have to be careful because you don't want to muddy all the colors together, but I didn't have any orange in here, so here we go. I just want to lose a little bit of this definition. Just using a wet brush and kind of blending it until I'm happy, because that was still looking very linear and I don't really want that. So I'm just getting a little bit of water on and I'm just kind of lightly brushing where the colors meet to blend them out a little bit. Blend out, blend out, blend out. It's not too bad. I feel like I could be happier with it, but it's all right. I think what I'm going to do is take my brush, dip it in the black, and blot most of it off and kind of do a bit of a dry brush over top to bring some black back through to show the definition of like the water coming back out. Maybe even get a little bit of my white on there too. And just hit a few spots. Because when you think of a reflection, it's not a solid thing on your water, you know? So I'm just gonna add some back in. Lightly back and forth. Again, just using the tip of my brush. Don't need to use the whole thing. That's looking better. I'll break up the line over here a little. Just gonna kind of brush all of my edges here where the water kind of meets the land with that black. That makes me feel better. All right. Just gonna do a few more streaks. Like I said, just go until you're happy, but just don't overly put paint down because that's when you're gonna run into trouble. It's gonna get muddy. It's gonna look weird. If that happens to you, step away, let it dry. That way you can apply paint back to it and try to cover that up. All right. This is what we got going on. Okay. Excuse me. Now, I am going to put in a bit of like a bush along the line of my river. I'm going to be using my, I forgot what this is called, my fan brush to do so. It's still kind of wet with that white that we had. If you don't have this or like a harder bristle like this, you can still just use this to bounce. If you like the way yours looks right now, leave it alone. Don't touch it. I don't really like how defined my line is right here. Because in my head along a riverbank, usually there's like stuff kind of growing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fan brush or my harder bristled brush or that one. I'm going to dip it in the black and just get the paint on the tip. Just on the tip. I'm going to dab away any excess off onto the side. And then I'm going to just follow that made line that I have. And I'm just going to pounce it around, following the shoreline that I created. And it's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be like super defined where you can see it, all of it, but I just want it to kind of break that up and give it more of a natural touch. And I'm just going to do that on both sides. And you can see I keep it, in a line vertically. And I'm just following that line and I'm just barely tap, 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 bounce, bounce, bounce. All the way up. It doesn't need a ton, but that makes me feel a little bit better. It wasn't looking how my eye liked. So I don't know if this will register in the camera. You can kind of see it. And then as it dries, it'll kind of blend back down. But it just gives it a little bit of texture right there, as if there's like some bushels growing along. All right, last but not least, we are going to add in some trees. So to do the trees, I'm going to show you the two ways that you can. So I have this fan brush. Fan brushes are amazing for trees. They're amazing for palm trees, like for the palms and everything. They're amazing for like pine trees and those like evergreen trees. But if you don't have one of these and you do have more of a pointy rounded brush, actually probably smaller than this would work good too, then that will work too. And I'll just do a couple of trees in the two different colors so that you can kind of see. So we're going to be starting in the middle back here. So the further in the distance your tree is, the smaller it will be. And then your bigger trees will be in the forefront because they're closer to you. So we're going to do a couple smaller trees along the back here. And to do that, I guess I'll just use my pointy one for now and go ahead and show that to you. I'm going to get some more black out here. You can use black or you can use like the dark gray. And then we'll also be using some white. All I want you to do is take a little tiny bit of black on the tip, and give yourself a guideline of where your tree will go. So my two smallest trees are going to kind of go right here where my moon meets my ground. I'm going to start a little bit below it and then just draw one line up. I want my other one to kind of be over here. And then we're going to go ahead and turn this into a tree. So we're going to dip it in the black. We're going to dip it in the white, just the tip again. And you're just going to tap and kind of go down the line. And it's going to be kind of a triangle, but not like a perfect triangle because trees aren't perfect triangles, right? So I'm just going to kind of shape it, right? So you can see I kind of, right now, just have a basic little triangle, right? I'm going to give it definition by picking up that white or a lighter gray, and I'm just going to touch throughout, kind of tap, make some of them a little longer than the others, stick out a little further. Blend it in a little. Just give it a nice little shape. And then you have a tree. A happy little tree. So that's what I'm doing using this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do my second tree using this. And then I'll show you how to use the fan brush, because that's my preferred. I'm just dipping it in my black and my white. I'm going to start at the tip and just kind of make dots side to side, getting wider as I go to the bottom. The trees come to a point. Right now I'm not worried about what the paint looks like down there. I'm just giving it a shape. And then go back in with whatever color you need. And remember, you don't want to blot them together where they muddy together. The two colors, the two tones is what's going to give it definition. So you want to have some bright white spots and you want to have some dark black spots. Or the same thing, like if you're using like a light green and a dark green, you want those two colors to contrast pretty good. You don't want to mix them together because that's what gives you the definition of a tree. So I'm just coming back in and adding some parts where they stick out a little further and it's not just a perfect triangle, breaking up that shape a little. I'll show you that one. All right, so now I'm gonna switch over to my fan brush. I have 3 fan brushes. This size, one that's a little smaller, and then a tiny one. In reality, you only need one to be able to do this, but fan brushes do so much. Like if you have the right tools, you don't have to work near as hard. So I'm just sharing that with you. I'm going to put a little bit just on my edge of my brush here, and I'm going to figure out where I want my next tree to go. It's going to be a bit bigger. So I'm going to kind of make it kind of on the same plane as this one, but I'm going to make it I'm going to make it start up a little higher, and I'm going to make it a little taller. Just going to give myself a guideline. I'm going to do the same over here. I kind of want this one to be down a little further though, and still a little taller. And it's going to slightly overlap. All right, for my fan brush, I dip it into my black, I dip it into my white, and then I'm going to just touch, flip it, touch, and get a little bit of the excess off. And then because this is a smaller tree, I'm just going to be using the edge of my brush, just the edge. And I'm just going to do the same as before. I'm going to tap it, move it left and right all the way down, building my shape. I'm going to use the other side now because that's kind of poking out. And I'm just moving it back and forth until I make, again, the bottom of my tree wider and the top come to a point. Now mine's really dark, so I'm going to add some white and just kind of touch in there every every so often. I want some bright white contrasts on this a little bit right here. So you can see where that one and my other tree kind of meet. All right. That's with the fan brush. I don't know if you can, it's showing through the camera, but it just gives it a little bit more texture. I'm going to repeat. Just get some on my brush, tap it off, start at the top, go small, get wider. And it's okay if you can, you know, see through a little bit. I mean, because of the colors we're using on this one, you can't quite tell. But it's okay if like you can see through your tree a little bit, because if you think about when you look at trees outside, there are parts where you can see through it. They're not always full. Just gonna kind of go back and add my colors in. Give it some of that definition. Get more white poured out here. Whoa. And this is just what we're doing. We're just playing this little game with our, just kind of building the colors up. Don't forget to make some a little bit wider in some spots. I want this to stand out a little bit against that tree, so I'm gonna, there we go. All right, I'm going to move forward a little bit, and I'm gonna do bigger trees over here. You don't have to make it symmetrical on each side. I'm just doing this because our inspiration picture kind of was. So I'm just gonna get both colors. Now for this one, I'm gonna make this kind of obnoxious. I'm gonna make it nice and tall. It's gonna kind of come up, down. Do the same thing. I'm gonna bounce at the top and go side to side. And now since this one's gonna be bigger, I can use my full brush. You're gonna see how I can move side to side, and it just gives those kind of like branches looks. And I'm not really having to do much work. So I'm gonna use some white, make this one kind of stand out more. My big old tree. And then I'm going to, I think I like that side just with those. And then I think I might add 2 small trees on this side. That way it's not exactly the same. But now that you've kind of learned how to do the trees, put them wherever you want. And I guess it kind of just looks like a blob on the camera, but if I put it up closer, you'll kind of see the definition. And then as they dry, you'll be able to kind of see the overlapping happening. I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go back to my little round brush and do a couple smaller ones here. I actually might even do just a little tiny ones in the background. I don't know if we'll see them after I add my other ones in, but more of just shadows. Just kind of wiping it back and forth. There we go. All right, I'm gonna put another one kind of right here. Give myself a guideline. We'll make it kind of tall and bigger. Just trying to show you guys 2 techniques. The fan brush works really well, especially if you're using color. With the black and white, I mean, it definitely works fine. but you'll definitely see a big difference if you're using it for trees with color, because it does really good at leaving that definition. I'm just going to kind of blot around. If you guys paint this, I'd love to see it. I have a Facebook page, Crafting with Candace. It does have spaces in it, but go find me, and you should be able to post on my page and show me what you've done. I would love to see how they turned out for you, or leave me a comment, give me some feedback on how I did. Sometimes it's hard to explain to somebody what's in your head and to be able to get it out to where they can create too. So I'm doing my best, and I hope that it's working well for you. If you like this video, I'd love for you to hit the like button, give me a thumbs up, let me know that I'm doing a good job. Sometimes it's hard to tell when I don't get any feedback, and I can't grow and do better if I don't hear from you guys. So I would love to hear from you, to see what you guys think and how your stuff turned out. Just kind of playing around with this tree. My happy little trees, as Bob would say. And do kind of like a off the picture one, kind of have one that's gonna, it'll just, that part will show up. And I think too, I might put another one just like where the bottom here would show up in the foreground. But I think we're done, guys. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I'm gonna just get some black on here. Give this guy a little stomp. Just a tiny little one. This one, tiny little stomp. I love it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this process. I hope you feel more relaxed and a little more accomplished. I hope that I was helpful. I hope I didn't throw anybody off too much when I switch some stuff up in the middle, but sometimes you just have to find what works, and that's the beauty of it, is you can kind of switch it up and do what's best for you. So I will bring you guys down in here, give you a closer look of what I have. Once it dries, I'll give you guys a dried view. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and be a part of it and keep up with everything we do. I know if you're just here for painting, I kind of do a little bit of everything. I am very much, I don't know, I love to craft. I'm a maker. I just love anything to do with creating. I love to inspire other people to create. I love to kind of just see something and think, oh my gosh, I wonder if I can, and then just go for it. So if you get to my channel and you're kind of like, what is this girl doing? She's everywhere. It's because I am. It's because I have so much creativity in me trying to find its way out, that I'm trying to just share as much of it as I can and teach you guys what I know so that you can also create. So I really appreciate you being here with me today, and leave me a comment on how it turned out for you. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.